My stepdaughter wants me to terminate my pregnancy. My husband agrees with her. My husband and I have been together for 14 years. He's 9 years older than me and has 2 kids from his first marriage. Despite wanting it, I've never been able to carry a baby to term. One miscarriage several years ago, near the beginning of our marriage, and nothing since. No rhyme or reason for it, and my husband and I have come to terms with the fact that we won't add to the family. I was sad, but things have been tough financially the last few years, so I consoled myself that it's for the best. Until, the week before my 35th birthday, I realized my period was late. I get a positive test and I'm honestly over the moon, if you'll excuse the cliché. My husband is excited but wants us to wait to tell the family, which I agree with. I know the statistics and I don't want to have to be fielding constant questions if I miscarry. Both of my stepkids are what you might call failure to launch. Neither have gone to college and seem happy living at home or with my mother-in-law, who's much more permissive than I am. My drama with my mother-in-law could fill a whole just no mother-in-law database. When I first became engaged to my now husband, I made it clear that I loved the kids and wanted to be a good mom. In retaliation to the first time my stepson called me mom, mother-in-law ignited a campaign of terror against me, using the kids as a weapon. Among other things, she paid them $10 every time they said something mean to me and bragged about it to the rest of the family. So the relationship I have with them has been definitely strained at times and we missed a lot of years of bonding, but it's improved as they've gotten older and floated outside of her sphere of direct influence. I know they'll never see me as their mom at this point, but I'm happy with the relationship we've managed to scrape together despite it all. Or at least I was happy with it. So here I am, pregnant, happy, and planning a new piece to our life that I hadn't dared to hope for in 6 years. I let myself dream a little and went to a baby store where I cried a little bit and ended up buying a soft gray blanket and a tiny pair of shoes. Later that same day, I had to unexpectedly pick my stepdaughter up from work. Cool, fine, no big deal. I stopped to get gas and when I came back out, she's giving me the weirdest look. So are you like pregnant or something? She dug into the bag when I was out of the car. I could have lied easily and said it was for a friend, but why would I want to lie about it? I asked her if she could keep a secret, she promised she could, and I confirmed. Needless to say, it wasn't the happiest of responses. She just said, "Oh. Wow, that's weird," and was quiet the rest of the ride home. To say I was a bit deflated was an understatement, but she doesn't necessarily have to be happy about it. Me and my husband still can be, all on our own. Even if nobody else celebrates, we can. A few days later and everything else is going along just fine. I'm counting down the days until the ultrasound. Everything seems good until my stepson decides to show me a chat between him and my stepdaughter where she was talking about how gross it is that I'm pregnant. It's embarrassing. Everybody's going to assume it's actually her kid when we're out together and some other not very nice things. When she's back home later, I come out to talk to her while she's watching TV with my husband. I'm trying to be chill but my brain is going a million miles a minute. I asked her how she felt about the baby and she responded with an eye roll. I ask again, and tell her that I really want to know because it impacts her life, too. She's starting to get irritated with me. She says she's tired and had a long day and could I just drop it? Maybe this is where I misstepped, but no, I can't drop it now. I keep asking her to talk, she keeps refusing, until she finally decides to drop a bomb. You should just get a termination because this whole thing is effing weird. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked at this point. I knew that she wasn't delighted, but, damn, that's a whole other level. It was like getting smacked in the face with a sock full of nickels. I start crying, thanked her for being honest like an idiot, and then left the room. A little while later, my husband comes into the room where I'm sobbing my guts out. I assume he's going to try to comfort me or at least give me more context to soften the blow, which he does a lot when one of the kids say something awful to me. He sits down, puts his arm around me, and opens with, "Maybe we should consider it." He must have seen it in my eyes because he rushes on with how happy he is, but we're not really in the best place financially, but he just started a new job, but it's hard enough with the 2 kids already, but the kids aren't on board, but. I told him over my dead body was a baby that I've wanted for 14 effing years is getting terminated over that. It's a miracle baby, not a contestant to be voted off the island. I said some other things that I'm not proud of, stuffed some clothes in a bag, and came to my parents' house. I've been here for 3 days now and nobody has reached out to me. Not a peep. I just don't even know where to go from here. I feel like I'm surrounded by insane people that are all just looking out for their own interests. At least my parents are excited, I guess. I can't say that I am anymore. My stepdaughter wants me to terminate my pregnancy. My husband agrees with her. After what my husband said, I didn't want to see him at all. I had no desire after his confession. My radical act of self-care was ensconcing myself in my childhood bedroom, eating lots of potato chips and watching too much Animal Planet. My parents, at least, were absolutely delighted over the pregnancy. I'm an only child and my mom had always wanted more but had infertility problems, too. They went with me to my first ultrasound. They cried with me. They bought me a cake. My dad carved a little pumpkin with an amorphous blob on it that looked suspiciously like that weird, amazing amorphous blob on the sonogram screen. It was sweet. The day after the scheduled ultrasound and about 2 weeks of radio silence, I received a text from my husband saying that we need to talk, and I advised him that he could come talk to me in person. We chose to meet at a neutral public location as my parents didn't really want his face darkening their doorstep, and I agreed because I didn't want him tracking figurative shit all over my safe place. So, we talked, or rather, I talked. I informed him of how hurt I was, mostly by his agreement with my stepdaughter. He said he understood. I informed him that I would not be terminating for the comfort of an overgrown toddler. He nodded his head sagely. I informed him how the ultrasound went. He looked interested. I informed him that he and his children would be moving out of my house within 30 days. He was somewhat less in agreement at this point. He had let me stew for days and days by myself. I'm not sure if his tactic was to let me suck myself into an anxiety vortex, as I'm wont to do, and come crying back, as I have before. I wanted them out of my house. The house that I bought before our marriage, the house that was in only my name. Those bricks were designed to hold happiness, not petty comments and miserable people disguising their own black hearts, with my tendency to see the best in them. It was mine, and, as selfish as I'm sure someone will tell me it was mine alone to fill as I chose. And I no longer chose them. Around the time my husband and his kids moved their last box out, an ultrasound confirmed that my baby didn't survive. To say I was devastated would be an understatement, but at least I had my own space to grieve. Not only for my baby but for the family and marriage that had been my life for almost 15 years. I am sad and discouraged and more than a little hollow, but I'm no longer held down by 300+ pounds of dead weight in my home. Update 2, my stepdaughter wants me to terminate my pregnancy. My husband agrees with her. After I unceremoniously and ferociously kicked my husband and his 2 children to the curb, they moved back in with my mother-in-law. She was a controlling, cold person, who literally freaking paid them to be a-holes towards me in the hopes of splitting me up with my husband, and was overall an entitled bitch. She died 8 weeks later due to a car striking her down. I chuckled at the news like the Joker after finding out that the Batmobile broke down. I found it darkly ironic, since if she'd been sent to the Shadow Realm at any other point in our 15-year relationship, we might still be married today. As far as I know, my ex-husband and his kids are still living in that same house, as it's now his. According to his Facebook, he's had a few relationships but nothing seems to stick. He complained about one of the women he was seeing tying him and blindfolding him in bed, only to steal some jewelry and money from his wallet. Since his children were adults and we had little shared assets, our divorce was declared legal almost a year to the day after I filed. I'd honestly expected my ex to put up more of a fight, but it seems that the old hag being put in a pack took it out of him. I guess I can't say that she never did anything good for me. After all of this, I had no desire to seek another relationship. I was happy licking my own wounds alone, trying to piece together where it all went so sideways. The universe seemed to have other plans when I randomly ran into my soon-to-be ex-husband at the grocery store about a month and a half before my divorce was finalized. He looked like total crap and we briefly said hello. He stopped me and asked me how things were doing. In a desperate attempt, he asked me out to dinner one last time for old time's sake. Being dumb in the moment, thinking what could go wrong, I agreed. That meetup turned into a sleepover after a good few glasses of wine at each end. My soon-to-be ex-husband started looking very desirable and in a moment of weakness, I invited him to sleep over at mine. We then proceeded to have intimacy, raw, multiple times. We talked a lot in the morning. 3 weeks later I saw 2 little pink lines on a dollar store pregnancy test. I have no clue what to do now and no one to blame but myself.